fix those things, it becomes really quite an interesting sort of exercise of identifying something going wrong early enough that you can fix it very quickly, and then you get it back on track, and then move on to the next impossible thing.
One down.
Hi Michael, you too. Oh, hang on a minute.
Sure.
I'll have to put my coat on because this is official business, right?
Yes. To come here in this big shop,
Yeah.
what kind of opportunity is it for you? Is it a very rare opportunity, or do you have something similar in Australia?
It is unusual for me to work with 3 very skilled professional people whose job it is to make whatever anybody could possibly dream of. That is amazing.
I'm Gabriella Bizzetto. I'm from Griffith in New South Wales in Australia, but I currently reside in Adelaide in South Australia, and I'm the lecturer at the University of South Australia. Well, my work is very influenced by the body in general. I'm really interested in how the body works in a very scientific manner, and so the work that I make is generally trying to reinterpret the body into a physical manifestation of a way that you can understand. I find that when you look at data, it's really hard to understand what it means when it talks about the body. So my work's looking at how I can distill the body into neat components that make sense to me. I've made work before where I've reinterpreted the amount of water in your body into singular objects, and the amount of blood in your body into singular objects. So my work in Links is based on some work to do with the body. So that work, I was thinking a lot about how the physicality of your body includes a breath that's ephemeral. And I started documenting the shape of the breath as you exhale. And I started reinterpreting those shapes into glass and capturing that idea that your physical body is your breath that comes out. And I've also got some really tiny little works called Exchange. And Exchange are small, hot sculpted works with small bubbles in them, very similar to the work that we're doing here, that capture that idea of the osmosis that happens in your body when fluids and blood move back and forth.
I generally take it a bit easy on other people's things.
Yeah. I'm really excited to have a fantastic team of amazing glass blowers making my work. One of the things I found over the last few years is that my work has become more conceptual and definitely less technical, and so my skills and also my ability to carry great weight has diminished. And so I'm really interested in the team making me some work that I definitely can't make physically anymore. I think I'm pretty happy. Gorgeous. So there's work that I've designed ages ago that I've never made because I've just never been able to technically get my head around how to do it. And it seems that the team here will have a fairly good idea about how reinterpreting that. And so that's a really great opportunity for me, not only to get the work, but to see how a skilled team can produce it. I think they would be really tricky to make, even though they're quite simple works. And I think a lot of my work's simple, but hard to fabricate. So to relearn some techniques of how to remake my work. I'm interested in the idea that we might make some solid work where we're going to try and make a very singular small capillary that runs through the body of the work. And also some work where we're doing larger scale and working with the exterior body and the internal organ being suspended inside one another. So just about here. Yeah, beautiful. I feel like that team have some knowledge of particular techniques that'll be new for the way we do it, and also I'll have an amazing body of work at the end. So I'm really excited at what I'm going to learn while I'm here and the work that I'm going to get out of here.
Hi, Morgan.
He's carrying it like it's massively heavy.
Nice job.
Nice, thank you.
What do you think?
I think
Less is more?
less is more.
Just a little
Exactly.
busy.
Exactly.
How did you know? I was trying to think.
The background of my work is, I would say, diverse because my concepts have changed over the years. So, depending on my location, I have made bodies of work relating to those situations. A theme that runs consistently through my work is issues of cultural placement and feelings of home. So I've spent, of course, my childhood in Canberra, but I moved to the States, and so I made work about being homesick about Canberra, but also lending itself to my new home in America. My link to the States is quite wide because I have many links. My first link, of course, is probably similar to a lot of other artists, which is that I went to the Pilcher Glass School. So what turned into just sort of a quick visit extended into 12 years, and over that time I also got an American husband, which I would say is a pretty significant link. And also the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. I've been really fortunate to have a couple of residencies here, and I've always been pretty active in stopping in and being a participant as well. And so, yeah, I have many, many links to the States. My concept, or what I'd love to do, is to make a series of square rondelles, if that's possible. I went to Istanbul and Venice a couple of years ago, and I went and saw the mosaics. I've been inspired by them, so what I'd like to do is just make a series of tiles that then will make up like a really big picture. What I have the opportunity to do here, which I don't have to have back home, is the ability to work with hot glass. So this is a great chance to try to get movement within the work. So I'm making these panels of glass, almost swatches of sky that will then build into like a big skyscape.
I think that it's going to naturally always do that, that sometimes you might.
If you guys make a bubble with just one coat of colour, then maybe a bit medium, then a bit more, and blow those into balls, and I could just see what we're kind of dealing with, because I've never used any of the colours.
That particular bubble is a great test because the gaffers were teaching me different ways of applying the colour to get different kinds of effects.
I would say this is a very experimental residency, and that's the way I like it. I don't think I could deal with the pressure of wanting to make a finished piece per se. I'm just into seeing what kinds of feelings the gaffers can evoke.
I have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. But it's going to look like that. Only be able to touch it.
What's great about working with the team here is that I know how talented they are. So this residency, what I tried to do was not tell them how to make the piece. I tried to talk very much about the concept of the piece, and I just wanted them to apply their amazing knowledge and skill into how to interpret. For instance, there's a lot of powder applications to create these effects. I had assumed that I was going to be very hands-on in that part, but there is a guy on the team, Nico, who has worked with other Northwest artists who use powders, and he is so experienced in it that it's almost better for me to just give the concept and have him translate that into his skill.
There's something about your interpretation, like your skill level is great. And I think that's what I like about this little swatch in here. It's very descriptive, but it's also got quite a lot of depth.
To pop in here, to be back with friends and colleagues and people who I respect and admire, I love it.
Good afternoon though, and even injuries. Took out a guy and we still got 17, pretty good. Over my career it's moved across many different boundaries. I'm not a purist in my glass practice, though I love technique and I love to watch people with good technique. I find that it can be restrictive at times, so I like to mix it up a little bit, and I've got no qualms between high blowing skills and very low technique such as smashing glass. Nice! The works in the Lynx exhibition was made around about 7 to 10 years ago. And there was a period there for about 10 years where I was working with picking up tiles of fused glass and blowing it. These were also reverse painted, so there's imagery on the inside and outside of the vessel. The imagery or the narrative relates to a kind of a personal being the inside and the public being the outside, and really using the vessel as a metaphor for the body. What a great opportunity to be here at the museum. I'm focusing on making a large sculpture, just one piece, which is going to take, and I hope we can fit it into the 5 days of being here in the residency. It's an interesting process that I'm trying to figure out and resolve. I've made one before, and it's a matter of just making open-ended cylinders and stacking them, a little bit like a wine rack. Though looking at how it also reflects against my other sculptures, which are rings cable tied together to make large works. It's a mosaic, it goes back to my vessels, and just building up imagery through these tubes. 99 bottles on the wall, 99 beer bottles on the wall. And it's just called 99 bottles. 99 bottles is kind of like a play on the song, 99 bottles of beer on the wall. And that really just came about, there's a bit of humor in it, and there's a bit of a drama on the idea of the graphics, this explosion of red and yellows down the bottom. The idea of life, you know, the idea of existence and preciousness. We have this door-sized panel, reflects the figure, yet there's fragility in it, there's this breaking graphic. So I suppose we're counting days as we make this, the repetition of the cylinder making, the repetition of our days. Hopefully there's excitement. So from the first day, we produced 30 of these cylinders. What we're going to do is hot pop, just putting a score mark on these and rotating them and removing the top and the base, so they just become tubes. Yeah, it's a great privilege to be here. The facilities are fantastic, and what makes the facilities fantastic are the people. The people is such a great team with so much experience and skill, and reviewing the other artists that they've worked with, they're able to kind of like work with anyone, deal with anyone, and take the idea of making 99 cylinders on the shoulder and carry it.
You go first and I'll go
Well, I'll
second.
introduce myself.
Okay, you introduce yourself.
And then you
I'll
can talk
introduce
and I'll
myself.
correct you.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Or I'll talk and you can correct me.
I always love it. Generally, the way we work is there will be the seed of an idea, and then, I don't know if this is how you work, but then the idea grows organically. So for us, I feel like these are the seeds, and these are seeds of new work.
What we've hung our hat on is blown and cut glass, and at the core of our work is a collaboration where I'm a glass blower and Kathy is a cold worker, and there's a constant dialogue between the two of us. Would you agree with that, Kathy?
Yes. I only cold work, so I do carving and whatever surface treatments need doing. Our work is decorative. It's we don't make art per se. I think that we both feel very strongly that we're craftspeople, and that's what we work towards personally, is making really beautiful work very well.
And certainly when I'm looking at other people's artwork, I look at it also with a craftsman's eye. So I'm very interested in how things are made. It's a separate object, and we haven't resolved the base and all the rest of it. We collaborate before any glass blowing's done. The collaboration is done on a design level as well. So sometimes Kathy will do sketches, which then go on a heat shield. So when you're in the middle of glass blowing and maybe not thinking as clearly as when you're not hot and sweaty, there's a point of reference there, and there's an inspiration that Kathy's had input into.
In almost every situation, any drawing that I've done, Ben does a better job in the hot shot. So the plan with each of these is the form gets delineated on the high point. Hi. And then there's going to be radiating lines coming off the high point.
While we're here at the museum, we've got some ideas, and we'll make the first prototypes in the coming days.
It's a prototype, so for me, we'll make the elements, and then I guess we'll solve the next problem. The next step will become obvious, I guess.
Oh, it'll be all right. Sure? Yeah, we'll just do a massive trim.
I think the ideas that we had for these prototypes are perfect for a really skilled team who can help Ben.
Nico.
Making a concerted effort to shift our focus a little, and looking at some domestic lighting applications for blown glass, which could be a distraction, but it could be the start of a new, refreshing era for us.
Yours?
My name's Jessica Lachlan, and I'm from Adelaide in South Australia. It's interesting, I think, why we make work, why we're attracted to certain ideas. A good part of South Australia is what we call the outback. There's 4 large salt lakes there, and they're huge. I'm talking like a couple of 100 kilometres long, even longer actually. Lake Eyre is incredible. When I visit some of these salt lakes, you go out walking on a really still day, and the space is overwhelming. There's no activity, there's no noise, there's just light. And one day the mirage that I thought was ahead was actually water, and so as I continued to walk, I was walking on top of the water, so I could look down to my feet, down into the sky. And it's such an overwhelming feeling of space and completely limitlessness kind of nature. And that kind of space is something that really inspires my work. But in my work, I'm not trying to replicate that experience. I'm interested in the relationship to kind of thought.
Dad said, get a degree. She got 2,317 degrees Fahrenheit. Mom said, don't play with fire. They didn't listen. Dad said, art is for sissies. Oh, really? Get your glass down here. Museum of Glass.
Okay, that's better. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Museum of Glass. And so today, you'll be seeing our resident team of glassblowers. We have a team of glassblowers who work here all the time. They work with our visiting artists. They do various demonstrations. They're all world-class glassblowers. You're going to see some really good work. So just to get started here, I'll give you just a quick introduction to how glassblowing works. It's pretty simple. The most important thing in glassblowing is this guy right over here. This is our glass furnace. Behind that door, we have a ceramic tank. In that ceramic tank is 1,000 pounds of molten glass. The molten glass is kept at 2,100 degrees. And at that temperature, the glass has a consistency of honey. So there's 1,000 pounds of molten glass that feels like honey. We want to make stuff. We take one of those steel poles and we dip them into the molten glass like you dip one of these into a jar of honey. We twirl it around. A little bit sticks to the end. The pole itself is hollow, so when you blow, the ball of glass blows up like a balloon. If you want to make something a little larger, you blow a bubble, you let it harden a little bit, and you dip it back into the molten glass again, or a third time, or a fourth time. When you got all the glass you need, you just blow it up like a balloon. Once we get the glass out of the furnace, it stays hot and soft for about a minute. As it cools off, it gets stiffer. When it's too stiff to shape easily, we go to the second type of furnace, and that's called the glory hole. All these round guys are glory holes. They're all the same machine. They operate at 2,300 degrees, and they're just for heating and softening the glass. They have no glass in them. They're just a big old empty brick barrel. We stick it in there for a minute, it gets soft, we sit down and shape it again. If you've ever seen somebody work in a forge making horseshoes or swords, you know, they take the steel, they put it in the fire for a little while, heat it up, make it soft, bang on it, stick it back in the fire. Same deal here. And that's basically it. That's glass blowing. So if you look over on the right, that's Gabe Feenan from our team. And he's just dipped the end of that pipe in clear molten glass. The glass looks orange because it's hot. All glass looks some shade of orange when it's hot, whether it's red, green, pink, purple, blue, it doesn't matter. As it cools, it'll return to its natural color. So the glass he has there is just as clear as your eyeglasses. So we're going to be making a very unusual glass pitcher. It was designed by one of our visiting artists, Charles Perriott. Gabe over there is going to blow a bubble. And then over on the left, we've got these little metal molds. We're going to cast a little plate of textured glass with these metal molds. We're going to stick 2 of those textured plates on each side of the bubble, and then we're going to blow it up into a pitcher. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Okay, does a glass furnace stay on all the time? I'm going to repeat the question so everyone knows what I'm answering. The glass furnaces stay on 24/7, the ones that have the tank of glass. The big round guys, the glory holes, those get shut off at 5 when we quit. Sir. How can you blow when the glass is so hot? When the glass air reaches the other end of the pipe, it's at room temperature. It's not hot. Really? Right? It is metal. The pipe has a great deal of surface area, so it radiates the heat very efficiently. And when the air reaches the other end, it's not hot. Every once in a while, those steel pipes get a little warm. When they do, we have a little trough called the Pike Cooler. We lay the metal pipe in the trough, and we spray water on. That cools it off and makes it easier to hold. All the weight when we make something out of glass is at the far end of that pipe. So we want to hold it as far up as we can to get proper leverage. So we just lay it in the trough, cool the pipe off, and it's easier to hold and manipulate. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you vote? Yes, ma'am. I didn't see it, so I don't know. Taking out bubbles. Yeah, when your glass is big and thick and gooey, you can actually physically go in there and yank the thing out. Then you cut it off and you heat it up and smooth it out, and you never know it was there. Does Mr. Chihuly ever pop in here? Yes, he does. I'd say maybe about 3 times a year. He comes down here and works in our shop. So Ben's going to puff that out a little. Ben is the tall guy in the center of the workshop. He's rolling it on that steel table. The steel table is called the Marver, M-A-R-V-E-R. It does two things. We use it to shape the glass. We also use it to cool the glass down a little bit. When we roll it over that big slab of steel, the slab sucks some of the heat out of the glass. Nope, I did not. Oh, sure. The color in glass, you really only color glass when you first cook it up from the raw ingredients. It's like making a chocolate cake. You got to make it when you're cooking it up. So glass is made out of three things: sand, soda ash, and lime. You cook those up together, you get clear glass. If you add to that some kind of metal, you get colored glass. So if you add some cobalt, you'll get blue glass. Chromium will give you green glass. A little tiny bit of gold will give you pink glass. A lot of gold will give you a beautiful ruby red glass. You can even color glass with uranium and makes yellow-green glass that's very slightly radioactive. So it's the metals dissolved in the glass that give you its color. Yes, ma'am. Okay, most of the colored patterns that you're going to see in glass are different pieces of glass, colored glass melted together. So one thing we do is we draw out these rods of glass called cane. If we melt that into another piece of glass, we'll have a stripe. We have little chips of glass. We can melt them in. We'll get little dots of color. And there's thousands of variations on that. But they're mostly different colored pieces of glass melted together. Yes? Well, glassblowing is a team sport, and it is physically possible to do it alone, but doing it alone would be like one of those one-man bands where the guy's got the cymbal on his head and the drum on his stomach. Generally, it's done in teams. The more complicated the project, the more people that you use. So if you look at the workbench, one of the glass blowers is crouched down to the left of the bench, the guy in the black shirt. He's the guy that's actually blowing. So one guy is blowing it as the other guy shapes it. This is very typical of the Venetian style of glass blowing. Each country blows glass a little bit differently, and here in the United States we're pretty partial to the Venetian style. Starting in 1979, a number of Venetian masters came to the United States and began teaching the young Americans. Yes. It's hollow. Hollow, 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 hollow. So in order to make this picture, we're going to start out with what looks like a little kind of a banjo shape. We've got a long neck. We've got a kind of a bulbous end, and we're flattening the bulbous end. And that's going to be the body of the picture. We're flattening it temporarily, where we're going to add two textured panels to the two sides, and then we'll blow it up round again. sometimes they'll just take the metal rod and wrap the glass around it and make little individual. When we make very intricate patterns, we make a big long rod and cut it up into little pieces. Slide them onto a metal rod, go over a torch, and they melt a little, get rounded out. Oh yeah, all sorts of stuff. So if you look over to the left, one of the glass blowers is sprinkling a little crushed red glass into our mold. The crushed red glass, any colored crushed glass, is called frit, F-R-I-T. And we can buy it in any color, just like you would buy paint. And so when we pour the molten glass into that mold, it'll pick up the red glass, and the red glass will be give it a little bit of color. So right now, Sarah has a big ladle. She filled it with molten glass. And we're going to pour it into our steel mold to give us our textured piece. If you look up on the big screen, you'll see a nice shot of our textured piece. We're going to adhere it to one side of the pitcher. And we're going to do the same thing over again. We'll have the texture on two sides. Then we'll heat it up and blow it out, make it into a more pitcher-looking form. Yes. Okay, sometimes when we use these steel molds, we want them to be a little hot. So we just pour some molten glass on it, that warms it up, and then we throw it, we have a can there, we save it, and eventually that'll go back into the furnace. So now they're casting, that's what we call it when we pour the molten glass into a mold. They're casting the textured piece for the opposite side. These are the designs of a glass artist named Charles Perriott. And he was here in our shop working yesterday, and he asked us to make one more of these for him. Oh, sure there is. So you can see Gabe, the man in the black hat, is blowing, and the piece is getting bigger. Yes, ma'am. Hold on. Let me. Yes. Well, he wants the side. He wants the sides to blow out more because they're hotter. He doesn't want the sides of the pitcher. He wants them eventually to be round. When we went on, they were flat, but they were hotter. So when he blows, those will expand more than the part that's not hot. Sure. Right. But they're not the original bubble is not expanding at the same rate the thick parts are. Because the thick parts are much hotter because we just poured them straight out of the furnace. So those will be softer, and when he blows into it, the softer parts will expand more. You guys have any questions? Make it bigger. Because one person can shake. Oh, you mean why they change it? No reason. Whoever happens to be there. No, all these guys are okay. They're all super good glass blowers, and any one of them can do it. Pour water out. Right now they're making the body of the pitcher. It's got a skinny neck. Later on we'll cut the thing, point forward to make it body. Momentarily. The torch allows us to focus the heat in a particular place. When we put it in the big oven, we can't heat up just one part of it. But the torch is a small flame, so we can focus the heat just where we need it. So, according to this design, we want the body of the pitcher to be somewhat off-center. So Ben is letting that bubble sag a little bit so the pitcher, so that the neck of the pitcher will come out of the one end rather than out of the middle. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to transfer the glass from the original rod that it's blown on to a second steel rod called the punty. So Courtney, the man in the black shirt, is preparing the punty. We're going to use the rod that he has as a temporary handle to hold the pitcher from the bottom while we work on the shape of the top. Right now, it's connected to the pipe. We can't get to that place to shape it. So here we go. Courtney, in the black shirt and red beard, brings over the punty, the second steel rod. We attach it to the base of the pitcher. So we're going to use it to hold the pitcher while we work on the spout. We'll break the glass off the original pipe and leave it stuck to the one that Courtney just brought. When they're ready to remove the glass from the original pipe, they'll take a pair of metal tweezers, dip them in water, and drip a few drops of cold water on the hot glass. That will crack it, and then a light tap on the metal rod will release it. Here he goes. A few drops of water, and tap, and off it comes. So if we were making this bottle, it was attached like this. Now it's attached like this. Now this end is exposed. This end can be heated and shaped. The glass at the top of the spout, where it originally connected to the metal pipe, usually has a tendency to be thick. So the next operation is to thin out the glass at the top of that spout. So Ben Cobb, the man sitting at the workbench, is going to take a pair of metal tweezers, stretch that glass out, and cut off the thick part. So right now, Ben is stretching out the glass at the top of the spout. He's going to... Nope. None of them are. Let's see. Well, they all live in Tacoma now, but Gabe is originally from California. Ben originally from Rhode Island. Courtney originally from Texas, I think. These guys are good. They're serious guys. Everything that we do here is streamed to the internet. So if you want to watch us from home, we have a website, museumofglass.org. If you click on live glassmaking, you'll see whatever's going on in our shop, and you'll hear the voice of the announcer. We also have Facebook pages, Instagram, and all the usual social media. So now Ben is marking the spout with chalk, and he's going to trim the spout once again, but this time at a sharp angle, so we get a spout that pours well. So once again, he's going to use a pair of shears, very much like the tin snips you might have in your garage. The only difference is ours are sharper and not quite as rusty as the ones in your garage. Yes, sir. There is no formal apprenticeship system here in the United States. Learning glassblowing is like learning a musical instrument. Some people take to it quicker than others. How long does it take to learn piano? You can't really put a number on it. Just the longer you do it, the longer you get, the better you get at it. There you go. Amazing. Ow, ow. He's gunning for you now. You guys have any? On the bottom of the pitcher, well, they're going to leave a little glass stuck to the bottom of the pitcher. When it cools down, we'll grind it off with a grinding wheel. Do you guys have any questions? I mean, there is no such thing as silica glass. You can recycle the clear glass, but not the colored glass. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. So we're getting ready to put on the handle. Gabe, the man in the black hat, has blown a small bubble. He shaped it into a kind of a tube shape. And we're going to use it to make a hollow handle. So we'll attach it to the body of our pitcher. We'll stretch it out, cut it to whatever length we want it. Flip it over. Then he's going to grab it and attach it to the spout. Okay, yeah, you can give him a hand for that. So now our pitcher is almost complete. Ben's going to heat up the point where he attached the handle to the spout and make sure it's thoroughly welded to the spout. Do you guys have any questions? Well, this particular pitcher was designed by one of our guest artists, and he'll get to take it home and do whatever he wants with it, sell it to a millionaire. We just make those for fun. So we are almost done, and the reason I know that is because I look to your right, and you'll see one of the glass blowers putting on some protective clothing. He's going to load the finished pitcher into our annealing oven where it will be cooled slowly overnight. So when he grabs that pitcher, it will be about 1,000 degrees. He's put on Kevlar gloves. Kevlar is a synthetic fireproof material. When we're ready to remove it, Ben will once again dip those metal tweezers into water, drip a few drops of water on the joint between the metal rod and the pitcher, and a little tap on the metal rod will release it. Here he goes. A few drops of water. They'll crack the glass at the joint. And then a light tap will release it. Let's have a hand for Museum of Glass Hot Shop team and for our designer, Charles Perriott, who isn't here today. Well, we don't put it into the annealing oven till it's cooled down to about 1,000 degrees. The glasses only get soft at about 1,200 degrees. So when we put it away, it's already 200 degrees below where it's softened. So the glass is hard. Glass doesn't melt like ice melts. Ice melts at a particular temperature. Glass gets just soft, gets softer and softer and softer the hotter you get it. Right? No, he just put it in the furnace for a brief period of time. He didn't heat it up to the point where it's soft. Yeah, you gotta get experience. What? A water pitcher, yeah. But a crazy water pitcher. Yeah, we made a bunch of them yet. It was designed by one of our guest artists who was here yesterday. Nope. They're still in the oven cooling it off. Thanks for coming in, guys. Oh, yeah. No rest for the wicked. I don't know. Okay, so they're gonna be making. It's gonna look like a vase. It'll be very thick. It's gonna have a green interior and little bubbles over that. Did You guys want to see something fun? Christina, are you up there? Looks like you're on the... Okay, she'll be back in a moment. Well, I'll show you a little... We have a little video clip that shows you how we make them. Take care. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. So we build up the glass in layers. So we blow a little bubble, we let it cool off a little bit, and then we'll coat it with more glass. We can't. What? Oh, the pipe looks like a staff.